Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for choosing to join this session with us this afternoon. I have a really bad form in using mics, I have to say. I always forget to put them anywhere near my mouth. So my name is Emilie Ditton. I am the Mining and Metals, Mining and Metals segment leader for Schneider Electric. And so what that means is that I work across our teams and with our customers to bring the mining-centric value proposition across the amazing innovation and technology that Schneider and AVEVA have in our portfolio to our mining customers and engaging with the market. And ultimately, we work to support the sustainability transformations and the digital transformations that our customers are on. And with me is Javier Orellana. Javier runs our digital consulting practice in Australia and New Zealand. So what that means is he works with our clients to help them frame their transformational problems and then to work through to practical and executable outcomes that can deliver the value in their operations and their businesses. Javier has a focus around digital data-led decision-making and industrial control, and then we work also with our sustainability business and process electrification consulting teams around the energy management space as well. So Schneider Electric has really, and AVEVA, have been really leading in that space of IT-OT integration for a really long time. And ultimately, in terms of enabling that decision-making consistently in such a way that can really enable the efficiency and productivity outcomes that mining companies are after, is really having access to contextually relevant data on a consistent basis across the business. And so what we're going to talk to you a bit about is the importance of having a persona-led approach with that, and the approach in terms of bringing together future-ready control, data and operating model, in that together those components can really enable the business to have the capacity for that consistent and contextual data in order that decision-making quality can really be improved and ultimately deliver that efficiency and productivity at all levels of the business, from site through to corporate level decision making. And Javier will talk a bit more detail about that. But I think what I wanted to do first of all is to really set the context of that a bit, but first to talk to you about Schneider Electric. I think many of you in the audience will have heard of Schneider Electric and AVEVA in the past. Schneider in terms of the provision of control system capabilities and power and expertise. AVEVA in terms of the provision of OT software, particularly Pi, Ampler and Cytec in Australia. And so this year we're showcasing ourselves together and focused around the personas that I'll be talking a little bit about, and then Javier will go into more detail with, in terms of being the most important roles and focus areas within our customers' businesses to deliver the value that our capabilities bring to market, right from engineering, as I said, all the way through to operation and then the corporate decision making. So I'm going to play a video which really gives a sense of the value that we bring to our customers in a pictorial way, but much more easily than I can. So I'll just play that.
Make it. For trailblazing, for spin cycles, for a refreshing break, for a clear view, for a smooth ride. But make it sustainably by using our EcoStruxure architecture and platform to unlock efficiency, helping you meet demands while using fewer raw materials. Make it more efficiently with solutions that allow you to integrate operations from here to there, reducing costs and increasing profit potential. And make it more resiliently with software that enables the visibility, automation, and digitalization to give you the agility to compete in evolving environments. Make it for a more responsible way of doing business, while maintaining a resource-rich planet for future generations. Make it for the new, all-digital, all-electric world by improving power and process, helping you supply the crucial elements that forge the industries of the future. Because whatever you're making, we'll help you make it better, so you can make it for life.
Okay, so over the last 10 years or so, we've seen mining companies make significant investments in digital technology. I think if I look back 10 or 15 years, looking back to where we were then and where companies are now in the capabilities that they need to have in place in order that they can have access, that employees can have access to the data and the capacity to undertake decision making with that data is vast compared to where we were. But still, I think you could characterise the nature of data access and decision making within mining companies in two ways. One is heavily siloed and also very much centred around little islands of automation and excellence across the business that then are not integrated effectively and consistently. And this obviously makes it very difficult to be in a position to deliver the sort of consistent decision making that really ultimately on a consistent basis enables the business to really drive that efficiency and productivity. And ultimately the sort of data sharing we see in companies is something like this, really a bit of a mess. And so what we're really trying to get to is an integrated operating model. So in most mining operations there is a level of integration that exists between operations management, maintenance management and the integrated planning that joins the two. But by and large there still is a very high level of siloed data between what's happening at site from a process perspective and a production perspective and what's happening with the energy management data and decision making and sustainability data and decision making. So ultimately what we're advocating for is moving to this integrated operating model that is interoperable and integrated, and that ultimately the capacity to then be able to really deliver a significant uplift in decision-making quality at the highest level comes down to bringing together operating model, data, and a future-ready control and automation capability. And so we'll talk now a little bit about all of those elements and how it will come together in a little bit more detail. But ultimately to say that really fundamentally that is it is having those core components in place that really enable that outcome for the business. Thanks.
Hi everyone, thank you. So what I'd like to take you through today is really what does it mean when we talk about integrating all that information to support the various stakeholders and personas that Emilie was talking about. I've used a standard ISA 95 model. I think everybody here knows this model. I think one of the challenges that we have with this model is always, as we start to move into, I guess, the next generation or the way that we're addressing data and information, it's becoming quite blurred when you start to go between IoT, OT, IT, and cloud. So how are we managing that? So one of the things that I've seen, and look, I spend a lot of time talking to customers across the mining industry, but also other industries. I've done work with ports, I've done work now with airports, water, wastewater, and to be honest, the challenges are very, very similar. The consolidation of data that incorporates process data, which we're all very familiar with, but also other data that is now helping us to drive additional value to make better decisions. So this is things like your ERP data, financial data, forecasting data, information coming from your operators on site, such as reports, etc. That is now being incorporated or needs to be incorporated to make better decisions. And that diagram that I have there basically kind of gives you an idea of how we're consolidating that information. We're taking data, we're adding context, we're creating further information that can then be used to make a decision or decisions by the various stakeholders, then can be turned into action. The challenge though, we're now seeing the growth of AI, ML. I mean, ML's been around for a while, but AI now, we're leveraging AI to help us make decisions. The way I was, and as I talk to more and more people out in industry, is that there are three key areas. Decision, support. We're leveraging either an ML or a AI system to help us make a decision, and then provide a set of recommendations that we can action. We choose to action or not action. Second, we can move into where we have a bit more confidence in that information. We have decision augmentation, where the operator or the end user has to action that recommendation. Either they accept it or they reject it. And then finally, we move into something a bit more complex, which is decision automation, where we don't have a person in the loop. And I don't think we're there in most cases and across multiple industries. We talk a lot about how do we drive that, but the integration of the digital technologies are enabling us to make those decisions. But again, those AI models need to provide the relevant context to be able to drive those decisions that have a level of confidence that you can then actually action. So our people, our personas, use these tools at those various layers, whether it's at the control layer, at the supervisory control layer, at the production and operations layer, or at the business planning and logistics layer. And I'm sure here everyone has been involved or has seen the challenges sometimes I guess result from trying to get that information in. One of the things that I do see a lot is that the level of quality of data is got to be paramount, or it's critical to be able to have a level of confidence. Your sensor data, your calibration data, your data that is that's coming from the sensors, the calibration aspects become critical. Sometimes we forget about that, but bearing in mind that we need a level of confidence of that data as we move through this cycle or through this structure. What does that mean once we've got that information? Is that we can turn that into use cases. I know we now use the terms use cases. A few years ago, I've been around the industry a long while, and use cases used to be called applications. But it's the same thing. We're looking at how do we use that data to make decisions around process optimization, for example. Fuel management could be another use case. Operational performance, mobile fleet management. These use cases rely heavily on the data that is integrated into our systems. But how do we make that more effective so that our personas can make better use of that data? How do we bring that into a central point, a data, let's call it a data lake or a data reciprocal, or wherever we're going to store that data? How do we make sense of that data, and how do we integrate that data? And a critical element here is things like your digital strategy, your data governance, which then rolls onto your data models, to be able to make sure that the data that you're bringing in is consistent with the processes that you're undertaking, and that it's delivering the right information to the right people at the right time. So whether that's at the site, where your technicians are making decisions, which tend to be on a sort of daily, hourly, even minute basis, your operations decisions, where now we're starting to look at perhaps maybe a shift or a week, to your planning and targets, where now we're looking longer term, perhaps this is your sort of monthly, quarterly, and then finally your business decision, where we're making those longer term plans and aligning with your forecast and where you need to deliver a certain product with a certain quality at a certain time. But as the use cases that I mentioned are fairly standard, and I'm sure, again, people in the audience have come across and have worked on those use cases. They've been around for some time now. There are solutions, and there are a range of different companies that work across those. But as we move more and more forward, we're starting to bring information that are becoming more complex. So here's where we're starting to maybe link operations, performance, environmental aspects, energy management. So now we're linking multiple use cases by leveraging the power of advanced analytics, whether that's AI, ML, other types of advanced analysis work that can be brought in. Also, we're starting to look at data-driven operational efficiency. And I just realized that I forgot the A in data. Whoops. So, and I'm an engineer, so that's okay. So, but data-driven operation, being able to take that data and be able to drive tangible outcomes across multiple use cases. Resource optimization and agility. So one of the key elements is better understanding our deposit and making better decisions around how we extract, how do we manage fragmentation, how do we take that through the entire value chain, and again, being able to make decisions from the business point of view and work our way down to the actual execution. And then finally, prescriptive maintenance, where, and again, this is something that it's an interesting one, because we talk about scheduled maintenance is a good example, then we move on to a condition monitoring and then predictive, but prescriptive is the next layer where we're really leveraging AI or other mechanisms to help us not just identify the problem, not just predict the issue, but also to start to give us some direction on how to address that problem and look at where or how to not have that issue in the future. I want to take a little example here with operation. I'll take a SAG mill, for example. Okay, when we talk about the data model, the interdependency now of all of these components, it's becoming more and more paramount. So if we look at a SAG mill for the operations manager, they want to make sure they can run the right throughput, the quality, the grade. There are a number of different operational aspects that they need to focus on. But then the maintenance manager on the same asset is looking at some of that operational data, but they also want to know the current load. They want to know the bearing temperatures. They want to know the pressure on the oil. Different data, same asset. Your energy manager, again, wants to know information on the same asset, but they're looking at the leveraging aspects of the energy, so current, etc., but they want to understand the performance of that in relation to sustainability. So this is where I go back to that criticality around your data strategy, your data governance, and your data focus. The data model becomes critical because it's a single point or source of all your data that can drive those decisions across those various stakeholders that are using the same asset but are using it for different aspects in their decision making. I need to hurry up because I've run out of time. So this is a good example, and please come and join us in our booth because I can talk through a little bit more detail of what that stack looks like. And again, a lot of businesses have got a lot of technologies already in place. Do you need to rip it all out? No. We need to understand how do we maximize the value of our investment and where are the gaps to be able to drive that outcome that you're looking at as part of your digital strategy. And again, this is fairly straightforward where we have data, we add context, we turn it into information, we then analyze that information, we then use it to make a decision, and then finally we action that. What does that look like? To me, it looks like a control loop. So, and going back, my background is control. Everything is a control loop. So it's really around taking the data, putting the context, analyzing, making a decision, turning that decision into an action, and then closing the loop. I will really rush through this because, again, Did I get 2 more minutes? Okay. I just got 2 more minutes. Aligning your digital strategy, and I think this is a component that sometimes when we talk about technology, we get overwhelmed by what is possible. The reality is the technology out there, basically you can really achieve anything you want to because the interoperability is there, the integrations are there. Yes, there are legacy systems, but we need to really not focus at that aspect. We need to understand what are we trying to solve for and work our way down. What is what we're trying to answer, and then from that understand what are the data sets that we need. And to be able to do that, we need to align our digital strategies. We need to align your organizational strategy, your operational strategy, your people strategy. What are you doing on cloud? What are you doing on IT, on the IT layer, OT layer, and data layer? Because the digital strategy underpins every one of those. And if they're not aligned, this is where we end up getting into challenges where we may have multiple systems coming from multiple vendors that do not connect. They don't have the same interoperability, or they don't have interoperability at all. There are no standard communication protocols. There are no feasible ways of incorporating that data. And that's where we start what we call is regret spend and technical debt, because we start to move down a road where we have so many systems that are not able to be brought together. And to really maximize value, we need to bring those together. But that starts with your digital strategy, and then helps you to define your standards, helps you to define your approach to technology. Is that your one?
I think so.
Yeah, you could talk though.
And so, if you'd like to understand more how the personas across operation and production management, maintenance management, energy management, planning manager and sustainability manager map across the capabilities from Schneider and Aviva, from connected products through to software, digital twin, and the corporate decision-making layer, please come to our booth, and we have many people there who would be very, very happy to have a chat with you.
No, and one of the things that we have done is sometimes it's easy to show you a demo. What we've done in the way we've set up, we're actually integrating into some real equipment. So you can see how the data does flow from sensor through to cloud. It also, we could talk to you about all the challenges we had with our own cybersecurity teams as we were trying to do this, because of the policies that we needed to make sure we were aligning with. But yeah, come and have a look at what we've done. Thank you.
We haven't talked about one. Keep going. This is a really important point because we have donuts. It's a really critical attracting factor. So do come to our booth. I needed to get the donut message across.
About the donuts. Thank you.